Welcome to you all. I am Trish Costello. I am the CEO and founder of Portfolia and the managing director of Portfolia Funds. As many of you know, Portfolia designs venture capital funds for the individual accredited investor, letting us all have an opportunity to get into some of the most innovative and entrepreneurial companies in the country. And it enables us to actually diversify across 8 to 12 companies in a particular vertical or area of interest. And so many of you are new that are coming on today, as well as some very experienced Uber angel investors. And Portfolia is really designed for all of you. Even if you're just getting started, what you'll see being a part of Portfolia is that you'll have an opportunity to really get to understand that investing process. It's collaborative, it's educational, it's transparent, and most of all, it's really respectful of the entrepreneurial process. Just a little bit more, we have made 75 investments across 10 funds with quite impressive results and returns. Just to remind some of you, we were the very first venture capital fund in the femtech area in women's health in 2018, and we've since done another fund. We're the largest investor in women's health. We were the first venture capital fund to be led by 5 women of color in our Rising America Fund. And we are so pleased to now be launching our 11th fund, which is our food and ag tech fund. So we're really so thrilled about that. And you can stay on after this event if you want to talk to Brittany, our investor relations, and hear more about it. Or you'll also see in the chat where you can come on tomorrow at 1 o'clock and ask questions or set up a separate meeting. But the exciting thing about today is even though we've only now launched our food and ag tech fund, we have been investing in food and ag tech over the last years in some of our generalist funds. And one of the companies that we're most excited about is Full Harvest. And we have with us today Christine Mosley. Christine, we are so thrilled to have you join us on the Founder's Journey. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Christine, and then we're going to jump right in. Now, I want you all to feel comfortable, as you know, in Founder's Journey, to just start filling up that chat with questions and comments and your thoughts, and we will open it up. I'll be watching for your questions as we go, and I'll be weaving those in. And then in the last 15 minutes, we'll open it up completely for you to ask questions and really jump in. Christine is an amazing entrepreneur, a passionate serial social entrepreneur, and she's going to tell you all about her journey with Full Harvest. She has over 15 years of experience in logistics and the food industries at both Fortune 100 as well as high growth startups. She was with P&G early in her career, so she knows it from that big company side. And then also assisted with a number of fast growth companies, Organic Avenue, which was the healthy food and juice startup out of New York. And before she actually moved into developing and creating her own company. She has an MBA from Wharton Business School, an undergrad degree from University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Inc. has recognized her as the part of their top 100 female founders. Fortune has named her the second most innovative woman in food and drink. She's a part of the World Economic Forum Champions Group. Christina, you've done it all. You have really made the mark already in this, and this is such an exciting company. Tell us about, welcome here, and tell us how you got started. What was kind of that first idea when you created Full Harvest?
Sure. So a little bit about my story is, as you mentioned, spent 15 years seeing firsthand a lot of waste and inefficiencies along logistics and supply chain, as well as downstream in the food industries. And, after working at Maersk for 5 years, and then after business school, helping scale Organic Avenue, that's at Organic Avenue where I really fell in love with the food industry, just given how tangible it was and how with it touches everybody on the planet, and with improvements, you can impact health, the environment, and the economy all at once. And so next year I'll be actually celebrating 20 years of my first venture. And my parents are entrepreneurs, so it's always been in my blood, on top of working for companies to learn best practices, but was always looking for my next venture that would be a very large for-profit company that could make a big impact. And I was determined to prove you can do well and do good. And so food was really, my calling, given that, it was a massive market opportunity, but I just saw firsthand as an entrepreneur, so many things to be fixed and solved. And at the time, 6-7 years ago, there just wasn't a lot of innovation entrepreneurship in the space. It's been so amazing to see it just blow up over the last, 4 or 5 years. And so, what I noticed was that not only the waste and inefficiency, but up to 96% of what we were doing was offline. Phone calls, emails, paper checks in the mail, invoices, and this was, the 21st century with so much technology opportunity. And at the same time, I was frustrated that they were making $13 green juices. And it was because they were paying top dollar for perfect looking produce to then just immediately process it. And so I literally packed a suitcase 6 years ago, came out to San Francisco, to the West Coast for the first time, to start a company to figure out how to make healthy food more affordable, sustainable, and the supply chain more efficient. And that's right when these shocking food waste statistics had just come out. And I was blown away by how bad those numbers were then, 5-6 years ago, but sadly, they're even worse now with more data. And just what stuck out to me was how much was being wasted at the farm level, which I had not heard about before. And now, sadly, with more data, they found that over 25% of all edible produce in this country does not even leave the farm level. And then after the farm level, up to 40% is wasted. So you want to talk about, one of the world's dumbest problems in terms of people going hungry, yet we currently make enough food on this planet to feed 9-10 billion people. It's just not being efficiently distributed and going to the right people in the right ways. And so not only that, but they've now found that food waste is the #1 contributor to climate change, even over cars and cows. And so this is a massive opportunity and problem we need to solve urgently. And so I just saw at the farm level the biggest impact to be made, given that in large volumes every day, there's perfectly edible produce that this fast growth plant-based food industry that's tripled in the last 5 years and accelerating, would be happy to purchase, given that they don't need to care what produce looks like. So saw the opportunity to create the first B2B marketplace to incentivize growers to easily offload that edible excess produce to these food and beverage companies in a 21st century way. So it's really a win-win for everybody. Suppliers make incremental money they're desperate for. Buyers are saving time and money and solving food waste, all while getting a digital supply chain solution. So really a win-win-win.
Yes. Yes. Now you've been at this for a while. It takes a while to start shifting, the view and the practice, right? Because you're really having an impact on how harvesting is being done. So kind of when did you get started? Tell us a little bit about the early days.
Yeah, so the kind of aha moment was when I saw these stats. I went out to one of the largest farms in the country to see firsthand and watched as they were only harvesting 25% of the big, beautiful romaine heads and letting up to 75% fall to the ground to perfectly bag the heart for grocery stores. What people don't realize is when there's something that looks perfect in the grocery store, everything else on that, plant or vegetable or fruit has probably gone to waste for that. And so that was really the first, insight into, well, how do we incentivize these growers to capture that product? And so I first, started as demand driven, where I went to, several juice and plant-based companies, kind of shored up demand, and went to a few farms for specific items that I knew were being wasted and that these buyers were spending a lot of money on from local small distributors that were being gouged for perfect looking produce to then just process it, and incented my first growers to just box up and package the product that my buyers would be willing to purchase. And we ended up launching first with kale and chard, which, were very expensive items, yet the farmers I was talking to were leaving 30 to 40% of those outside leaves on the stalk that were fine. They just, weren't for retailer spec. And so they started harvesting that. And over the last 3 years, we've helped with one farm increase their yield by up to 30% and their profit per acre by up to 12% because of that. So massive value and benefits. And then our buyers are saving the time and money, as I said. So really just helping to significantly create more full harvests, getting more edible food being consumed out of what they're already investing in growing. So that's what kind of got us off the ground, was that those first orders.
Well, I don't know. I'm kind of shifting over to the audience, to the members that are listening. I mean, did you have any idea, that, almost half of our produce is being wasted, whether it's at the farm or post-farm, either, on our refrigerators and others. I mean, I was just shocked at that, Christine, when you told me those numbers, especially knowing how many people go hungry. And as you said, the price, when you're putting perfect, fruit and vegetables and in other food, food packaged goods and all, it's just really shocking to think about that, and to think about the impact it has on our water and the environment. It's just really exciting to see what you've been able to put together. Now, when you're talking about this marketplace, you're selling large quantities of produce, right? I mean, this is a big scalable operation. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we decided to take a top-down approach, similar to other successful companies out there, Uber, Tesla, of going where the big fish are, and the big opportunity is to create scale and initial revenue to then pay for the building out of more of the technology to cater to the long tail of the SMBs. And so we actually started with medium to large, and now have recently gone even larger to some of the largest food companies in the world. We had big launches with Mondelez and Danone last year. And so that was really exciting. But then plan with, over the next 18 to 24 months to finish some capabilities to be able to cater, to, the medium to small companies and more of the long tail. But really, right now, most of our deliveries are full truckloads or half truckloads, given the vast volume from some of these customers, and the potential to grow within them is massive, just with the companies we're already working with. And, we have up to $1 billion worth of potential produce sales within our existing customer base. And then on the farm side, up to $8.7 billion of produce potential sales, especially as we expand what we start selling on the marketplace with farms that we're already having onboarded on our marketplace. So huge potential to scale as we're just unlocking more within the marketplace and features and matching.
Mm-hmm. What's been the biggest challenge as you've grown the company?
Honestly, I mean, this is just from a business management standpoint. I think early days, it's, because no one has done this before. I think honestly, it was challenging the first few years to find the right people, because you're either wanting subject matter experts, but that come from the old school way of doing business. It's hard to get them to work at a startup, or it's getting, tech people that, don't understand the food industry, which is kind of unique. And so luckily, over the last few years, the market across ag tech and food tech have really sped up, and so there's many, there's a larger pool of people that have worked, in the space, or kind of understand it or get it, and we're learning kind of how to find that fine line between those two. But I think early days, it's just the challenge of doing something that's never been done before, and even finding data and benchmarks. I mean, it's just an offline industry on both sides, so you can't just spend money and buy a prospect list, but that's a huge barrier to entry, and an advantage for us is we're becoming a data powerhouse, because we're collecting, through every conversation and every marketplace sale, data that just doesn't exist in the market today. So that's hugely valuable. And that's why marketplaces are so great and really hard to catch up with once, the flywheel gets going, because it's hard for anybody else to have that level of, data and sophistication from that. So I think that early on was a challenge, and now it's getting easier and easier. And so we're just really excited about now feeling like the opportunity is just getting bigger and bigger every day, especially with COVID shining a light on how critically technology is needed in the space. And we're still the only people doing really what we're doing, digitizing the supply chain. So it's great to be in that position as a market leader.
Yes. Well, it's, I think people are surprised too. I mean, even looking at the whole food and ag tech market, $8 trillion global market, over 1 trillion is what they say in the US. What's the market that you're, completely focused on, which is, kind of really it's a food waste, you're tackling food waste, but you're also creating the new revenue. I mean, it's a really huge market. You're the main player in this space right now. I mean, you've kind of defined it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So kind of top down, it is a $1.2 trillion produce market. If you add in on top of it what's not being currently sold, combining that all, it's a $1.2 trillion market opportunity of produce, which currently is being purchased globally, up to 96% offline. So it's just massive market opportunity to digitize. It's about $90 billion in the US alone. And then we've started as the leader and owner on the B2B side of the $16 billion market in the US of just unsold produce. So we are currently the leader in that, but using that as a beachhead. And with the same technology, we plan to expand into all of produce by next year. So these 90 and then $1.2 trillion markets, given that COVID showed not only the world, but us, how critically we can leverage our technology for even bigger purpose, and also prevent, all of that waste, from happening even more in the future as we start having more challenges with climate change and supply demand shifts and things. So just really landing and expanding with our current leadership position already.
There's some interesting questions coming in, a lot of questions. Let me just jump in and pull some of these up here. So Christy asks, does your marketplace allow farms and buyers to interact directly, or does Full Harvest serve as an intermediary for all the buys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we've built the marketplace to almost act like the first ever online distributor. And so we don't physically touch the produce. We keep the buyers and suppliers opaque like a distributor would, but bringing it online to streamline everything, because we truly believe that these super small mom and pop, highly fragmented old school distributors, just like other industries, is archaic, and there's a better way to use the technology for it. And so we don't let the companies talk to each other directly. We share all of the SKUs and things that the farms are posting to the buyers, and then they purchase based on what they see. And so we do coordinate the logistics for a lot of our customers. Again, we don't touch the produce, but we have third-party partners, but we're in the process of working with logistics technology partnerships to even automate that piece of it to scale further and faster. And so that is a huge benefit in and of itself, because now they're getting product direct from farm. So it's faster and fresher. It's not even sitting in a warehouse for 4 or 5 days, which helps with food safety, traceability, shelf life. And people are shocked at how quote unquote beautiful the produce looks, even if it's imperfect or surplus, because it's gotten there 4 or 5 days faster, which we believe is possible.
Mm-hmm. Another question from Elizabeth. She asks, so the revenue model is to take just a little of the sales? Is it like an Etsy revenue model where you're taking a bite of each of the sale? Is that how it works, Christine?
Yeah, so we take a take rate of every transaction, like a typical marketplace. And then we have extremely high 85 to 90+% gross margin on that take rate, given that, we're a software company and there's no assets. So there's not much below the bottom line. And then we've started already to expand into what's great about B2B marketplaces is you're able to pretty easily add incremental revenue streams, which really just significantly grow the revenue pie. And so we started last year with one incremental revenue stream that, some of the largest food companies in the world were, starting to pay us for some of our innovation to help them build out products with our rescued produce, and then purchasing the produce through the marketplace, and then using our logo on packaging And then by next year, we also plan to start charging for bundled, more enhanced features, premium features to our customers to help them run their business even better and smarter with leveraging the data that we're collecting that's highly valuable and not really in existence in the industry right now.
So you're almost doing a good housekeeping seal of approval. So that a kind of a mark that shows the people that, these larger companies are using, rescued produce to build out their products.
Yeah, we had some of the largest food companies in the world come to us in the last couple of years and just say that, the next huge organic trend is this upcycled rescue trend. And they looked everywhere in the world, and we were the only company that had the expertise and ability to create, scalable, consistent supply chains of this rescued produce. And since we do own the whole supply chain in terms of, transparency and the relationships with the suppliers, we know that what product that we're selling would have absolutely gone to waste without a purchase order. So if the company is really interested in marketing against food waste or environmental impact or climate change, given that the number one trend of consumer relevance right now in food is waste reduction and sourcing responsibly, and they want to really grow sales to cater to that, we can help them market against that, given that we know which produce that we sell can be verified that it is being rescued with their order. And so it's a huge marketing value to them to be able to say that and put it on packaging if they so choose and make claims around that. So we've seen that just be very valuable to some of our customers.
Mm-hmm. So there's a question from Shruta, it's kind of staying with, she said is the supply chain owned end to end in addition to the tech platform, or do you partner with other logistics and distribution companies? You've talked a little bit about that, and then what percentage of total cost is the transportation or distribution of the produce itself?
Yeah, it's a small portion. I mean, out of, it just totally depends on the order, because we have such wide ranging, prices of commodities and logistics. It's a small portion though, but our take rate is after we've paid for the produce and the logistics. But we offer everything on our marketplace, what's called FOB, which means anybody can pick it up and do their own logistics. But we just have a lot of customers ask or want that logistics, given that it's very valuable to them. We can take margin off of it, which is good for us. And it helps us to control the whole user experience in a data-driven way. And people have told us that our logistics is second to none, because we look at data on time in full, and we make sure that it's always on time and in full, which is unheard of in the logistics industry or in the produce industry usually. And so even just things we weren't planning on being, values to them, just given the fact that we are taking a data-driven technology approach, it's really improving their user experience. And so we don't touch the produce, but we do have third-party partners. And then, as I said, by next year, we're going to be having logistics technology partners integrated into the marketplace so that it's fully automated end to end for those shipments.
Christine, there's a number of questions coming up asking about whether you're interacting at all with the direct to consumer of imperfect produce or those types of things, or working directly with restaurants.
Yeah, so the imperfect submissives of the world are customer potentials, and I can't say who or where I am with those customers at the moment, but they're customers, they're not competitors. And several other types of direct-to-consumer companies as well. So that's huge potential, for our growth. If they do well, we do well in terms of potential opportunity. So very, very different business models, and love what they're doing in terms of awareness and food waste. But they're hyper-focused B2C. We are hyper-focused B2B. We've been kind of parallel processing and supporting each other over the years. And so that's one piece of that question. And what was the other part of it?
Restaurants. They're talking about
the restaurants. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been hyper focused on CPG companies, packaged goods and processors for the first several years, given my expertise in that. And it's a $28 billion demand opportunity that truly doesn't need to care what produce looks like. So we should be selling 100%, of our produce to that market. And we really have an expertise there that no one else does. We started to dip our toe a little bit into food service before COVID, but obviously COVID happened and it wasn't really, thankfully, a big part of our business at all yet. But we do now, with coming out of this and more logistics technology support, plan to expand pretty much to anyone that is interested in buying sustainable produce, as well as any produce across any type of market that is looking for it in a much more technological, digitized way.
Mm-hmm. When you talked earlier about, it's really an emerging market. It's one that you've, been instrumental in defining, difficult to find, to find the talent. But I'm certain it's also been difficult to find the capital, especially in the early days. We like to say venture capital feeds new innovation, but sometimes when you're really new, it's hard to get that money in. Talk a little bit about your fundraising journey.
Well, being, a girl with a suitcase from the East Coast and didn't know anybody out here to start a business and raise capital that I'd never raised before, I bootstrapped the first year and a half. I didn't have friends and family money. So it was quite the learning experience. And what I learned, this is almost funny, is that, I'm fresh off the boat thinking, oh yeah, everybody's telling me about seed rounds. Okay. But it was the Wild West, 4 or 5 years ago with that. And I finally figured it out and learned, it's because just a couple of years ago, there was no such thing as a seed round. That's why it's so confusing, So even that, navigating that, I think after the fact, put a little context on it. But, I was getting people giving me advice, telling me what to do, but then other people, everybody telling me something different. It was tough. I spent, it took me 8-9 months because I would have some people meet with me 7-8 times where I was educating them on agriculture, and then I didn't know any better to say after 2-3 meetings, sorry, that if is it a yes or is it a no, because I don't have time, it's a lot for an entrepreneur to meet that often to just educate. And so I think what I was very fortunate is that we got a lot of amazing interest early on from some fantastic angels that did get it. And then we were able to, finally, I learned the hard lesson of this is all learning by trial by fire, but we almost had a term sheet pretty quickly within the first few months. When I say we, I mean I, because it was me and a laptop at the time. But I didn't know about the whole July, August black hole for 6 weeks within VC of people traveling. And so we were just about to get a term sheet, and then they were like closing a next fund and they all went on vacation. And then I had to wait 8 weeks for them to all come back and then finally get the term sheet. So that was also what prolonged the whole situation. But got a fantastic lead, Wireframe, Paul and Harsh, and love them. And they, got it because they made some really successful bets around, circular economy companies in the past. And so they got it. They were one of the few people that just understood, they were like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And digitization of these, very old school offline industries, especially, with inefficient markets, is huge opportunity. So very fortunate to find them, and then had some fantastic, angels come along as well as some other, BBG ventures. They've been phenomenal. Joan Wilson. So just some great people early on, and, that I met through pitch competitions or things like that. But then I learned the ropes, and then our Series A, we had 5 term sheets within 6 to 8 weeks, only a year and a half later. So I just think that the market has just really, it just kind of started turning, shortly after my seed round. And it was just, I was hoping that would be the case, and I was seeing sort of the early indicators, but I mean, it's just mind blowing how different of a world it is now versus, 5 years ago, where no one got what I was saying. They're like, what, so you're trying to sell garbage, they just, they didn't understand. I'm like, no, it's perfectly edible food. So, it's just, it's been awesome to have companies like Imperfect Produce and the markets educate for us, because I do feel like that was a silver lining is they invested so much in consumer awareness that helped us, at the same time. So yeah, it's been great to watch the change.
Yeah, isn't it? It's just it has shifted so much. But you've still had now, are you comfortable sharing how much you've raised to date? Because, you've still had to be really smart. We hear about, places like Impossible Foods raising $1.5 billion and things like that. I mean, you've had to be, really creative to fuel your growth.
Yeah, I mean, we've raised over $17 million to date. And really proud of that. I think that, plan to raise more for sure, soon. So I think that, it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears hustle. It's, the fact that the market opportunity has finally come to light. COVID was also really gratefully net positive for us, for a wake up call for, I think, the whole world that this was needed. And even more so for our customers as well. It's hard work and it's also a little bit of luck, but I think the big thing is that, I jokingly call it, when I found out about the data and this opportunity, my big short moment where I came across this data. And, at the time I was like, this is crazy. How is this not on the front page of the New York Times? And when I saw that, romaine harvest, I just was like, this is a disaster waiting to happen. And, like in The Big Short, when he was like, I'm going to put everything I have on this bet. And I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to blow up in our faces. And I'm going to be the one with the solution. And, for me, that's what it was. It was that I was like, I don't know if this is going to be months or years, from now that this is going to blow up in our faces. But when it does, I'm going to be ready with a solution and people are going to finally, get what I've been trying to say, So I think last year was part of that. And so I think, to your point around, just being creative, I think it's less about creative. I think it's seeing an opportunity and having the, strong gut confidence that this needs to be solved and it's going to be solved. And I'm the only one that I know of that's getting it. So I'm going to move as fast as I possibly can. And, that knowledge, it's almost like that's the perfect thing for an investor is to have somebody find this huge market opportunity that no one knows about and solve it and be a leader in it, And so just felt very fortunate to come across, the perfect thing for me to combine all my experience and passion around. So, yeah.
And we feel the same way. We feel fortunate that we found, a passionate entrepreneur that really has been so great at executing on this as well. So it is exciting when those things all come together. A question that's come in from Shruda, it's, is this focused on North America only, or are you planning to expand beyond potentially South America or other areas? It's such a huge global cause and a human imperative, she says.
Absolutely. So right now, because the US is one of the biggest markets and worst offenders with food waste, tons of work to do there and massive market, $16 billion wasted, $90 billion total produce market. So without even leaving California, we have the majority, of the market on both sides. So it's great that it's really concentrated, but we've also been dealing with imports since, we started, given the fact that, the US does have to import certain tropicals or certain produce at certain times of the year. So in that sense, we are somewhat international with the import side of things, but we've started working with global brands like Danone and Mosley. And so I think that with that, we are already, figuring out ways to start expanding, globally in the next couple of years, and definitely absolutely plan in a few years to go global once we finish, kind of nailing it in the US. So it's definitely on our roadmap and just strategically, expanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're getting a lot of fangirl comments in here. I don't know if you're noticing in the chat, but many, many people, thanking you for what you're doing and the amazing work. Janet is talking about, how much she loves what you're doing. Bravo from Diana. You're who I want to be. A lot of great comments in here. So one of the questions, it's like, let me get back here. I'm just so many, I'm getting caught up. What's the one thing you would do differently looking back on it now? Asks Elizabeth.
I think I would have done more to set myself up with the strong support I needed sooner. I mean, I was a solo founder, and I work, to the bone, for whatever I'm focused on and passionate about. But I think that, I should have probably found a COO sooner. Just had, I've been doing this 5.5 years, just got one last year. Took me a while to get a good EA. And, I just think that there were things that, even just support with other founders. I was so busy. I didn't take the time to set up kind of a brain trust or strong advisors or things that took me several years. And so, yeah, I think that if I could do it all over again, I would have kind of set some of these things up, sooner or at the beginning to just really make it somewhat easier, because being a founder is hard, but I think I made it a little bit even harder on myself, this first 3-4 years, just, trying to do it all, and yeah, I just think it could be easier.
Yeah, it can be a lonely road, isn't it? And that really makes it all the more impressive, because it's harder for a solo entrepreneur to raise money, as well. And it's so, such an impressive thing that you're doing. I don't know if if this is something you want to speak about. Roy is asking, any thoughts on nutrition and about corn subsidies and corn syrup and that type of thing?
Yeah, so a couple things. One is we're not really focused on corn, wheat, or soy. And not to say that at some point we may not, but it's just, those are such like their own beast. And there's, even some people out there that I'm friends with, founders that have grain marketplaces, and produce, produce is just such, vegetables, fruit is just very, it's very unique in its own way. And so, but I will say that, part of my passion for starting Full Harvest, and one of the instigators was, as I was saying, that the fact that they were selling $13 green juices for, because of the produce cost. And so, my whole life I've been passionate about democratization, where my almost 20-year-old venture is a national nonprofit democratizing music education, something very different. But, really wanted to figure out, how do we make healthy food more affordable and accessible? And, I truly believe what we're doing at Full Harvest is critical for that, because, why sell either a $13 green juice when it could be a $4 or $5 green juice if it's just using, 100% imperfect and surplus produce for cheap. And then more people can be healthy and have more nutrition, because produce is like the ultimate nutrition. And, the other thing is, right now, a lot of people are cutting corners in food with fillers and, a lot of apple juice, just as a filler because it's cheap. Whereas if we get the cost of some of these like more nutrient dense vegetables down and leafy greens, then, we can have more nutrition within some of these plant-based products, and be able to afford it more. And something I'm really proud of is that we've had some customers that, there's really strict levels for organic product. It's got to be, 90+% of organic product, 90 or 95, depending on the situation. And we had some people that were like 75, 80, but they couldn't get there because of the cost structure, so they couldn't get certified, yet they were doing a lot of the work to get close. And they also had to wash their facilities every day because they were switching between organic and conventional. We helped them kind of get to that level of being able to have organic products, because we were able to save them, money enough to kind of get there. So I think a lot of what we're doing is helping with nutrition, because sadly, it's supply demand. We are getting very close to running out of the potential for supply. We're running out of land, water, resources. And soon that's going to get even worse faster. And yet demand is going through the roof for produce. And I think it's not going anywhere anytime soon, because people are trying to be more plant-based and, environmentally friendly. And because of that, the cost of produce could go through the roof again. And then we might try to cut corners even more so with, GMOs and soil things and just altering it in artificial ways, which we don't, really need when we're leaving, we're wasting more than 50% of it along the supply chain. Right. So I feel like this is just absolutely necessary to be more efficient where, it's just an efficient market where people that don't need a carrot produce looks like are buying 100% of that. People that do can buy it, more efficiently. So I just think as we get there, that what we're doing is almost going to hopefully really improve it for now, but then prevent, it getting really potentially out of control cost-wise down the road. And then again, cost prohibitive for people to be able to be healthy.
Well, and that's what Kathy Carlick talks about as well. One of her questions is, is this part of the solution on food inflation? Mm-hmm. What you're doing, keeping the, mm-hmm. Keep things more, more reasonable and accessible to everyone. Mm-hmm. So and Christy asks, so what capabilities do you need to continue to grow and scale? What are the next areas that you're going to need to hire?
Yeah, so there's a couple key last things that, we plan to solve over the next 18 to 24 months that can unlock even more massive growth, which is automating, as I mentioned, some of the logistics capabilities, which we're in talks right now with partners to do that. And then starting to expand into more types of SKUs, including processed, which is more than double the market. And we already work with some of the largest processors in the world. And now they're really excited to, work on full harvest powder or full harvest puree, which will unlock, even more capabilities, and is great because, they then create products that can last quite a while and are, actually pretty sustainable because, something frozen can last a couple of years. So excited about that expansion, helping to expand. We've started to expand into supporting, direct to consumer produce boxes with companies that deal with the direct to consumer. I just think that, it's just the tip of the iceberg right now in terms of the capabilities. And then the hope is that by the end, end of 2022, we have a lot of the last, automation pieces solved for, that then we can pretty much service anybody within the US, at least as we so choose, given, the SKUs and the logistics. Because right now, those are some of the biggest things where there's a lot of demand or interest, but we just can't yet, cater to every item or every location yet, but we're getting there. So that's one thing. Next area is to hire. We are, really investing on our tech and product side because, again, COVID helped us understand even more, but it was on working groups during COVID that some investors put together with top farmers, top retailers, top food people, where it was almost a marketing call for Full Harvest, where, they were just saying, oh my gosh, like we need to have more flexible supply chains and opportunities. But the issue is we're data starved and we have no access, or transparency into market opportunities because it's offline. And so, they were so desperate, they were looking at like OpenTable for leading indicator data of where demand was. I mean, or sending around PDFs to like a vast lead list of people they had never talked to before, just desperately trying to find supply demand. And so I think, what we saw was just, the faster we can move, the bigger, we can be as the solution, because, if we were just a year or two ahead during COVID, we would have been a massive clearinghouse and solved, so much. And so now it's just like the impetus to just stay the market leader, move as fast as possible and help solve these problems. And a lot of it can be done with tech. So that's the big area, is the tech and product side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Very interesting there. Well, one of the questions that's just popped up, let me see who it is. Varun asks, given the space of food, ag supply chain, and also what just happened with COVID and all the issues that have, that we saw there, would a company like yours be able to, apply for significant government grants or contracts? Curious if this is something that might be a possibility.
We have somebody on our team just looking into it, just out of curiosity. Obviously, though, we're a venture-backed company, and we just want to grow as fast as we possibly can. I think sometimes there's strings attached with those kinds of things, or it takes a while to even find out if we're going to get them. And it's extra work, but out of curiosity, we're kind of looking into it. Yeah, so that's latest on that.
So I'd love to see, from people, interest. I'm trying to convince Christine. I know someday she's going to be going out for more money, and I'm trying to convince her to hold a spot for us. So all of you that really like what Christine's doing, if you'll pop in chat and say, Christine, hold us a spot, then I'm going to download this chat and make sure she has it with her later. Oh my gosh, look at all of it coming in. Capital letters.
Great. I'll take a screenshot.
So, and as investors, of course, we have to get to that exit question. And Melina asks, how do you think about an exit pathway for your company? What does that time frame look like?
Yeah, I mean, I truly see us being a category leader here. I mean, we're for sure first mover advantage. We 5 years later still don't have anybody really doing what we're doing, and happy to explain why. I mean, with at a super high level, fast answer is that you got to look at the existing supply chain, and it's 75% 20 employee or less, mom and pop, highly fragmented, just old school distributors. They're not going to become tech companies. The other 25% are the massive, US Foods, Sodexos of the world. They have innovator's dilemma problem. It's hard for them to become tech companies. So that's why this hasn't happened, and why even after 5 years, it's why you've seen Rent the Runway. People say, why isn't somebody else in the space going to do it? And they've been hugely successful. And and so similar companies like that have come in with technology to a non-technology industry. So I think, we just really plan to be the category leader and be a massive company. And so definitely IPO, ideally. And, but along the way, if there's, a potential, there's a lot of potential people on different sides, because we touch so many things. We touch ag, we touch supply chain, we touch tech, we touch food. So there's a lot of potential, acquirers from big ag. You've seen a lot of 300 million, many to $1 billion exits lately on ag within big ag, acquisitions on the food side as well. People looking for solutions, even if it's supply chain, and also on the tech side of things. There's a lot of companies out there that do e-commerce that I can, not to name names, but I think you can imagine that they might be interested in up the chain supply chain technology solutions. And so, there's definitely many different acquisition potentials, but I think that, I would want to make sure that we were still able to scale our solution, just given the huge opportunity and potential of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that.
So, so many questions still out on the table, but that just shows how powerful what you're doing is. How can we? I mean, we're investors. We're in 46 states and 18 countries. How can we, contribute to your success?
I appreciate that. It's very nice to ask. So, I mean, we're always looking for engineers. I think it's just gotten harder and harder by the day. So, tech hires engineers, and just great as we start building out more layers of executive team, directors, VPs, things like that over the next year or so. Always looking for great talent, and then just intros to any food and beverage company that at any level or industry that buys produce that might be interested in what we're doing. That would be great. We're doing extremely well on the supply side, but also if there's any big ag or farms that might have intros as well, and then just great investors outside of you guys, of course. But I think we're always looking for great VC partners, for the future as well. So yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I see Sheila had mentioned that her family's in farming.
Mhm.
So Sheila, Sheila has a lot of knowledge and expertise on that. So, make those referrals. Um, one thing that we talked about, and kind of, an area that I know is just a great passion for you, is how we can make a difference in our own lives when we look at the food waste out there. And you were sharing with me that you kind of have your top, recommendations on how we each can make a difference in food. So can you
Yeah,
share those with us? Mhm.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think, my dream and will be when hopefully sooner than later, we as a culture start looking at food waste as such as a shameful thing as, we started doing with smoking and things like that, because it is literally killing our planet. And so I think that's part of the issue, is that it's not yet a cultural norm. I'm like one of the only people that I don't, I'm not rude to my friends and family, but I definitely, ensure that they take home leftovers and make them aware of, what went into growing that produce and, blood, sweat, and tears to get it there, and to respect it and value it. But I think a couple of things are, sadly, it was one of the last things that Anthony Bourdain did, but it was amazing. He did a documentary on food waste called Wasted. So highly recommend watching that. And the number one thing he says a consumer can do, just based on the economics of it, is actually to compost, which there's this huge misconception about this. I think even some of my very sustainable friends, thought, oh, if it goes in the garbage, it's composting. But it's actually the worst thing you can do is put food in the trash, because it goes to a landfill. And when it's at a landfill, something like a watermelon, which might just take a week to decompose, can take 20 years. And it's giving off methane, which is more than 30 times more powerful than carbon emissions. So it's giving off the worst, most potent emissions while slowly decomposing over extremely long, extended periods of time, while being mixed with things like plastic, things like that. And so it may seem, in some places it's difficult because we're not, everybody doesn't have the fortunate setup in San Francisco that they're very good with the systems. But there's a lot of solutions. There's something I just saw on Indiegogo called Lomi or something, that within a few hours has a box that you press it and it turns it into compost in 4 hours. There's, your garden, but anything to keep food out of the landfill. That's the biggest thing. And then it can be contained and then turned into biofuels, bioplastics, other things. The other big thing is, and I learned this during COVID, it's the simplest thing, and it literally almost eliminated our in-house food waste during quarantine, is just simply organizing your fridge with the top shelf being things that are about to go bad, whether it's takeout food or berries or things like that. And then kind of do it in order of, expiration. And just always try to, when you open your fridge, eat from the first shelf first. And I'm telling you, it like almost eliminated our food waste, and just being kind of, adamant about trying your best to do that. And every day or every other day, just kind of moving things up. So little thing, massive difference. And then just buying imperfect and, produce at the grocery store, or going to farmers markets, again, to the byproduct thing. When you buy chopped up watermelon in a little thing at the grocery store, it's probably wasting about 50% of that watermelon. And so buy whole produce, buy whole heads of things. That's why farmers markets are great, because if it's chopped up in some perfect way, like I said, it's probably wasting a lot. And yeah, give the imperfect produce guys a chance, and then buy things with full harvest in it. So there's an amazing product, Danone. We launched in December, Too Good Save line extension. It's a whole line of SKUs that we're rolling out. We already did the first one in December, which is Meyer Lemon. Too Good. It's good for the planet. It's low sugar, 2 grams of sugar. It's delicious. And it has our seal on packaging that's verified rescue produce. So it's helping the planet. It's delicious. It's healthy. We've got 2 more SKUs coming out later this year. I'm super excited. We innovated with them to truly solve food waste with these SKUs. So really excited for the rest to come out. And we also have a line of Dirt Kitchen snacks with Mondelez that has air-dried veggie crisps in it. It's online at dirtkitchensnacks.com or in certain stores. But there'll be more that you'll see with us marketing with big companies in their products. So really exciting.
So friends, so watch for those things. Take a snap, take a photo of those when you see Christine's logo on that. Put it up all over your social. And when you put it up on social, also say, and I'm an investor in Christine in this company.
Yeah.
It really makes a difference.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't talk about the women's thing, Christine, but Christine mentioned to me, it's a much harder road as a woman entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Going out for financing and growing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So love what you guys are doing and really appreciate the support. It's been great. Yeah, excited to do more with you guys.
It's so exciting, and I'm just doing, a few things that have caught my eye. Barbara says, I live in an eco village in the Netherlands. We're all over the world, friends. We live completely off the grid. Composting is a must. You have a whole crew of people that are obsessed. Say, I'm obsessed with composting. I see this
Right.
over and over and over. A number of introductions that people are wanting to make. Go ahead and continue to drop this into the chat. We will download your chat and share it with Christine. And we are getting close to the end of our session. What's always so amazing with me, and I've had a couple of hours to be able to talk with Christine, over the past year, and I always walk away wanting to hear more, wanting to know more. This is the kind of companies that we can invest in that will really change the world. This is the way to put your money to work and really make a difference. So what we're going to do, remember, we do have our new Food and Ag Tech Fund open now. We've had so many people in, it's going for a first close within the next probably 10 days to 2 weeks. We need to take Christine off to a private meeting with the lead partners to kind of go into another level of discussion. But Brittany Bigler will continue on for the next 5 minutes. If you'd like to go ahead and continue to put in any comments or questions or recommendations, or you have any questions for Brittany about the new fund, what focus we're going to do on it, who's going to be leading it, she'll be here to talk with you. And then tomorrow at 1 o'clock, she's also going to be doing a session with our lead investors. Now, Christine, we'll move to the other conversation. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for investing your money behind companies that really are changing the world. And we'll see you soon in another portfolio event.